This week, the last few months, honestly, the last year has been, it's been an interesting one, huh? I think we all feel it. We've all known it. We've all hoped that it wouldn't come to this, and here we are. And I just gotta bring up a little story. I never voted for a president until this third time of Donald Trump running. And I voted for him, A, because RFK Jr. joined him. Two, because my husband really liked him and I agree with his opinions. And three, because the movement made me feel like things maybe would change. Maybe we would actually be represented, right? I never voted before because I didn't believe that voting mattered. I didn't think that if I voted that it would change anything. That anybody voting changes anything. That whole idea of if if voting actually mattered, then we would not be allowed to do it. And I've always had that thought because I had a very political boyfriend way back in the day, and I got a lot of cynicism from him. And so when it came to this election cycle, I got excited because after Biden, I wanted change. I couldn't handle living in that kind of society again. And yes, change has happened for all of you who are saying, oh, but Trump's done a bunch of things. Yes, he has. Yes, that's true. But I don't necessarily think Trump's the problem here. Maybe he is. He's got his own issues, but every president does, right? But Congress, Senate, they do not represent us, do they? Do you think they do? I certainly don't think so. And people give the presidency, the vote for president, so much weight. And then nobody cares about who's representing them in Congress or Senate or in their own state's seats or in their local city. That's who I vote for. I vote for the local people, the local issues. But this was the first time I voted for president, and I don't want to say that I'm disappointed. I'm sure he's doing better than Kamala would have done by now, but I feel like I had this vision of what it was going to be like, and you probably all do too. This vision of what it was going to be like, and then now here we are. And things are falling apart and nothing's happening, and all the things that we wanted to see, they're just not coming to fruition, right? So in my local arena here in Colorado, Excel has been sending out these emails. I've seen them across X that they're going to be turning off power to somewhere around plus or minus 500,000 people because of windstorms. Now, I'm not going to say it hasn't been windy. It has, but honestly, that's how Colorado is. So it's not like out of the ordinary, like some crazy windstorm. It's windy. Yes, it's windy. And in the past, power lines have fallen and started fires, and it's very dry right now, which is also not rare for Colorado. So putting those two things together, this lack of the government doing anything for us, and then here's a corporation who chummed up to the Colorado government and now is allowed to just turn off our power whenever we want. It brings me to this frustration with how fragile society is. I mean, we are fragile, and it's because we are so dependent on our government, on corporations, and on the system that they've created for us. It's so comfortable. I mean, I think it was in the 1920s, not even half of households had electricity. And now you aren't even allowed to not have electricity run to your home. It's illegal, at least in the suburbs where I live, to have your home off grid. Wow. Ridiculous. Self-survival or self-sufficiency is illegal. How did that become part of America? I mean, people aren't even allowed to grow gardens in their yard. You're not allowed to have chickens. I mean, these are things that are the root of what America was. And they've been slowly eroded away from us, and it's made us weak, and it's made us a fragile society, and we need government, and we need corporations to give us all of these things that we don't know how to do ourselves. Today, we're going to talk about how we resist that. How do you fight back against a government who no longer represents you? And I know a lot of us, I've seen it online and I feel it in my own heart. When's the revolution going to start? When's the Civil War going to start? Who's going to take the first shot? When are we going to do something? That's not how this revolution's going to be. Right? Sure hope not. I mean, I'm a mom. I've got kids. I've got a husband. I don't want him to go to war. I don't want him to leave me with the kids to raise by myself. I don't want people coming to my house with guns. I mean, I have my own. I can protect myself, but I don't want that. It's like this interesting fantasy that, like a movie, but in real life, we don't want that. Come on. I know. Maybe if you have no kids and you're a patriot who wants to stand up and fight for America, I mean, that could be your job, but not for the normal people and the normal families. That's just not who we are. We're soft now. We don't want to go fight a war. So how do we resist? How do we stand up and say, no, we're not doing this anymore? How do we be civilly disobedient without needing guns, right? I mean, I love our Second Amendment, but I sure as hell don't want to use it. I will if I have to, but I don't think we need to. I think what it comes down to is bringing back our independence. Stop being dependent on every system that they provide for us. And being civilly disobedient in the right way, not in a violent way. So how do we prepare our communities to bring back that heart of the true American spirit? And I think that's what the civil disobedience and what the decentralizing our independence, right? These are the things that we need to talk about. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, I'm JJ Jeffrey and this is Homestead Republic. And today we are talking about the idea of when voting stops working. What do us patriots do? Please don't start a civil war. Please don't start a revolutionary war. I don't want that. You don't want that. It's a fun fantasy that we don't actually want to come to fruition, but we do want to change things. And with all of this overwhelming corruption and ineffectiveness in our politics, it's easy to complain, but what do real Americans do? What have our forefathers done? They've acted. But that, like I said, it doesn't mean starting a war. Yes, there's a war going on, but we, the patriots, aren't pulling out our guns and fighting our neighbors. We're all too mixed up. You know, the leftists down the street with the rainbow flag and the pro-Palestine flag outside their house, they're right there. My conservative neighbors over here. I we have friends and enemies all around us, and that's not how the Civil War was fought. The Civil War was, there was the South and there was the North, and we were separated and we fought each other. Same with the Revolutionary War. The British soldiers came over and fought. Things are way too mixed up for us to have a civil war right now. I mean, it would be horrendous. No thanks. So here is my rundown of what we really should be doing. And some of it is boring things, but they're things that you can do in your everyday life that are going to make a huge difference to whether or not the government can control us and whether or not we are even going to listen to what the government's doing. Sure, I want to go, knock on Nancy Pelosi's door with a bunch of people with pitchforks and go put her in prison where she belongs. Am I going to do that? I don't think so. And neither are most of you. Maybe there's some patriots out there that want to do it. I'm not saying any violence should happen. But, we have imaginative spirits, and we wish somebody would do something. Somebody would take the bad people in our society and give them the justice that they deserve. And it's not happening. So instead of standing up and doing those kinds of things, let's look at some ideas of what we can do as families to make ourselves less dependent on the government and corporations and the rules that they've overwhelmed us with in society. Okay? So I don't want this to just be about complaining. I want it to be about real ideas, because I'm always hearing about complaining, and we all have complaints. And what do we do about it? That's always my thought whenever I hear people bitching and complaining about something. What do we do? Let's get into it right here, okay? So let's start with why voting feels ineffective, right? Like I said, I haven't voted in a presidential election ever. I'm 38, I think, this year. And I voted for Trump in 2024, I mean. I voted for Trump, and he was the first president that I ever voted for. That doesn't mean I didn't vote for local issues or Colorado state issues or anything like that, since I've been living in Colorado since I was 18. Mainly, why do we feel like voting doesn't work? Corruption, right? Voting doesn't seem to work because all of our politicians, the majority of them, are corrupt. It seems like it. I don't know. Maybe I haven't met them, but sure seems like it. They don't listen to us when it seems like everybody wants something. And it's a very, sorry about that. And it's a very obvious thing. They vote the opposite. Why did they give Ukraine more money? Why are we paying for more wars? Why did that happen? It's absurd. Why haven't people been indicted? I don't understand. We all know that that's what we want. How is it not happening? Oh, it's so hard. Go pick them up at their house and put them in jail and hold them there until you have the case put together. I mean, the case is already, we already know what these people have done. Have you seen that recent chart of Nancy Pelosi's net worth going up compared to other investors? It's obscene. We know she is a total corrupt bad guy. Why don't we do anything? I don't know. I'm not in there. Somebody's getting paid off. That's what it feels like. There's bureaucracy, there's entrenched power. I we all know it. We all feel it, and that is what makes us feel like voting is so ineffective because it hasn't changed anything. All the bad guys are still there. And it's just the reality of our modern politics, right? So let's talk some truth. Politicians often seem to serve special interests and not citizens. We can all assume that they're getting paid off by some corporation somewhere. Corporations have a huge grasp on our politics, and us as people don't really matter as much when they're getting paid off, right, by these groups. I guess I'm popular tonight. So we see the corruption and the bureaucracy and the payoffs and these people not listening to us. It makes us realize that it's not working. But that doesn't mean that if we become empowered citizens, that we can't change things. Continue to vote. Yes, please vote for good people. But, they can come off as good at first, and then we can find out that they actually got handed $1 million check and decided to go with the other people's ideas. Voting feels like a lottery ticket, right? Like maybe we're going to get somebody good, but I'd rather be getting something firm and solid and real that is actually going to change my life for the better instead of the worse, because I don't think I've ever seen in my lifetime somebody make a decision that made my life better, except for maybe RFK Jr. just recently with some of his Maha stuff. But they're little. If the system's rigged, what's the alternative? What's the thing that's gonna give us the morality and true patriotism that we feel like we're owed, right? What kind of resistance can we put up? It's got to be something that's rooted in community and self-sovereignty, because like I've said over and over, if they have any control of us, they can rule over us. I don't want it. You don't want it. So what do we do? So what's civil disobedience, civil resistance actually look like? Okay. It's not anarchy. I don't want anarchy. Again, I raised children. I don't need people running around stealing from each other and all the other crazy things that anarchy can bring. I kind of like that the street lights turn red and yellow and green, and I'll listen to laws like that. There's some good laws out there. But civil disobedience is nonviolent, but it's purposeful refusal to comply with systems that erode our fundamental rights. And we have a lot of fundamental rights that have slowly over time been taken away from us. Another part of this civil disobedience is it needs to be collective. If one person's doing it, well, they can be weeded out pretty dang easily. If everybody's doing it, well, there's not enough people to enforce something like that. So it has to be collective. It can't be just some individual rage, at least not most of the time. So let's say, for example, not paying our taxes. I'd love to not pay my taxes, but I'm not going to not pay my taxes unless I know that 1 million other people aren't going to pay their taxes or something of that number. So, I keep having this idea that runs through my head of like, maybe somebody needs to start an X account that's called Americans Won't Pay Taxes. And when it hits 10 million followers, that's the year we say, fuck you, government, we're not doing it. Until then, There's not a big enough collective of us going to say no, and they're going to come for us. It's got to be a collective movement. We've got to come together and say, yes, this easy, simple thing, we'll all do that together. And until that happens, people are going to go to jail. People are going to get in trouble. So that's part of the civil disobedience I'm talking about, this collectivism. And it's got to be wrapped around our shared values, which, here on the right, where the conservatives are arguing about this and that, and Candace Owens and Turning Point and Tucker Carlson and Alex Jones and this guy and that guy and that guy and everybody. Stop it. Just stop it already. We all have the same general shared values. Okay? You might not want to support Israel. You might want to support Israel. Is that huge of a thing that's going to break up the entire this or that? It shouldn't be, okay? Can we like kind of find a middle ground here? We give Israel a little bit and not as much as they have been getting. I don't know. I'm America first, right? And I'm MAGA. I think that we can make this country great again, but I also think that we should stop spending money in places that are not supporting us. Anyways, moving on from that. That was kind of a side note. Here's some examples of some civil disobedient acts that made a difference. So there's like the Montgomery bus boycott, or the or civil rights sit-ins, right? I don't really see us doing some sit-ins because the left has taken that over and, concreted their hands to sidewalks and things. I'm not really interested in that kind of thing. It's silly and childish, and I don't really think it's going to change things. It just creates a lot of publicity and people get to call you stupid. So let's not do that. But there's got to be morality behind it. And we don't want it to look stupid like how the left is doing their kind of sit-in stuff. One of the big examples of civil disobedience was, of course, the Boston Tea Party. It was principled refusal. And I love what they did. I don't think it's necessarily appropriate right now. But they communally came together and made that happen. Maybe there's something that we can do that with. The thing popping into my head right now is beef. Can we just stop buying beef from the big four and just start buying it from our local farms? Yes, it's going to cost more money. That's what monopolies and giant corporations do. They make things cost less, and they make them shittier, by the way, also. So maybe that's one of the things. Instead of throwing out the tea, we throw out the giant corporations' meats and we start buying from local ranchers again. I don't know, just an idea. Anyways, here's some other examples of some things that I've kind of written up as ideas that we can collectively use some civil disobedience with. Things like homeschooling. Stop letting your kids go to school. I mean, I've actually heard in lots of places where schools are closing down because there's not enough kids in the schools. So be it. Homeschooling is awesome and fun and can be really great if you have a positive, good attitude about it. My oldest gets really frustrated with me when I teach her, but you know what? It's not that bad. It's not that hard. She's learning. She's a smart cookie. She just would rather be doing some other things, and that's fine. I don't do art projects with her all day, which is what her part-time school does. I mean, literally, she's just doing art all day, which is fun, but I don't think she'd have learned to read at this point if it weren't for me. So homeschooling. Get your kids out of the local schools. Get them shut down because there's not enough kids because everybody's homeschooling their kids. And you'll get to see a lot more families walking around. You'll get to be out meeting people. It's great. Next, grow your own food. Even if zoning laws say that you can't. You know, you gotta stick up your middle finger to people saying that you can't be self-sufficient, or at least try, right? It's not that easy to grow a garden big enough to to feed yourself, especially in just a regular city lot. But at least start building your knowledge on how to do it, right? Get chickens if you can. I don't care if the law says you can't. Get a bunch of other people around you to get chickens. It's this collectivist thing. If a whole neighborhood has chickens, you know, it's going to break their enforcement of it. They're going to have to change their rules or just overlook what you're doing. What about living off the grid? Right now here in Colorado, they've got that, they're shutting people's power off because of this windstorm. Are you prepared for that? Or are you dependent on their system, and if they turn off your power, you're shit out of luck? Come on. Stop being dependent. Get a generator. Put up some solar panels. Figure out a way. I think at our property we have, let's see, I think we have 4 different ways that we can run our house if the power were to go out. So we've got a lot of backups. We do not want to be dependent people, and neither do you. The corporations and the government control you with these things, with food, with energy, with institutions in school, with childcare. These are the things that you need to step back and say, which of these things, or how many of these things, can I make myself independent of them from? Because again, independence means that they don't have as much control over you. And doing it together is going to make it even stronger. What about your health care? That's a tough one. But there are doctors and groups that you can go to that are going to make you less dependent on the system. Figure them out. Figure out how to be independent. And then there's also things like skill building. Learn how to do things that matter if, a civil war were to break out. Do you know how to weld? Do you know how to do any woodworking? Can you fix anything? Do you know how to use any tools? Do you know how to do blacksmithing? I mean, there's so many things, and they're fun things that can be hobbies, but we need to take them on. Ooh, that wind. It's blowing around out there. I'm not saying we need to abandon the law, but at the same time, a lot of these things, or some of these things, require breaking some laws that already were infringing on our right to take care of ourselves. And that's a big deal. We have to have courage to live outside the mindset of dependency. Do you have that courage? I sure hope so, because you're on my team and I want some strong people on my team, right? So, speaking about those rules and regulations and laws that are tripping us up because we feel like we can't do the things we want, we can't live off the grid, we can't raise chickens, we can't have, sheep on our property, we can't grow a garden because our HOA says we can't do this or that are independence-oriented things. Well, that reminds me of a recent thing that I saw from Elon on how complicated systems have created a force of us not being able to grow because we've created rule after rule after rule after rule, and we can't move forward because we've created too many rules for ourselves. We need sunset clauses. Here's the video.
So yeah, something needs to happen, or just the civilization's arteries just harden over time, and you can just get less and less done because there's just a rule against everything. So I think, like, I don't know, for Mars or whatever, I'd say, or even for obviously for Earth as well. Like, I think there should be an active process for removing rules and regulations and questioning their existence. Just like if we've got a function for creating rules and regulations, because rules and regulations you can also think of as like they're like software or lines of code for operating civilization. That's what rules and regulations. So it's not like we shouldn't have rules and regulations, but you have code accumulation, but no code removal, and so it just gets to become basically archaic bloatware after a while, and it's just it makes it hard for things to progress. So I don't know, maybe Mars you'd have like an any given law must have a sunset, and require active voting to keep it up there. I'd actually also say like, and these are just I don't know recommendations or thoughts. Ultimately, it will be up to the people on Mars to decide. I think it should be easier to remove a law than to add one because of just to overcome the inertia of laws. So maybe it's like, for argument's sake, you need like say 60% vote to have a law take effect, but only a 40% vote to remove it.
So from that, you can kind of see his point, right? There's been decades of permission slips, layers of regulations, systems that are so complex that it breaks normal life. And that complexity, it doesn't protect citizens. Maybe once upon a time this rule or that rule protected us, but more than anything, it has obstructed the freedom we're supposed to have. This is supposed to be a free country. And I can't even build a dang shed in my backyard without getting a permit for it. Are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. I can't have a rooster in my backyard. Why can't I go talk to my neighbor and say, hey, I'm going to get a rooster. Are you okay with that? And then be like, ooh, let's talk it over. Instead, it's just a rule, blanket rule. No thanks, can't have them. Whatever. Don't listen to all the rules. They're dumb and need to be changed. Not everyone. Like I said, I kind of like traffic laws. Red light, green light, stop signs. I like those ones. But there's a lot of rules that keep us stuck in the mud, keep us from moving forward. And I continue to see them added to Colorado. I mean, all new builds have to be electric. Homes need to have everything electric. You can't have gas run to your homes anymore. You can't have a wood burning stove. Are you kidding me? How dense do you have to be to see that makes us so fragile? But it saves the environment. That is a broken idea. I'm not going to go into saving the environment right now, but I think that fragility of humanity is more important than trying to make us all depend on just electric. Even though I do have an electric car and I have a diesel truck and I love them both, but that electric car's fast and it's fun to drive. Just saying. Not trying to be a hypocrite here. Like Elon said, there's too many rules and we need to start reeling them back. And that was one of the reasons that I ran for city council, was because probably my biggest goal, my biggest idea, the thing I wanted was to just get in there a sunset clause, which means that after 5 years, or whatever the number, a law that was put in place has to be rethought of. And is it that great? If it is, we can keep it. If not, throw it out. And it makes the politicians spend that extra time that they have to relook at laws and to get rid of them if it's too much of a pain in the butt. And I think that there's so many laws out there. I mean, there's so many laws that should be off the books, and they're not. When rules lock normal life out, things like housing, gardens, homeschooling, energy, things like that, then that's when civil disobedience should be used as a rebellion against those rules. We're trying to survive here. We're trying to make our lives less fragile. We're trying to make ourselves more independent. And who's the government to come in and tell us that we can't do those things? That we can't be free enough to do something as simple as raise chickens, butcher some chickens in our backyard. I know there's people that are mad about that, that hate that don't want their neighbors doing that, but those are the people that are the most dependent on the system and crave more dependency. Our group of people, my group of people, my community, patriots, we don't want that. And there's more of us than them. I think that that's a real statement. I mean, even the liberals, there's a lot of liberals that have started their own little farms and are living off the land, trying to be vegans off the land. I don't know how you do it, but they're even on our side when it comes to this. So this is why so many Americans feel stuck, right? The rule book isn't written for citizens. It's written for compliance, and it's written to boost those big old corporations and give them the control of our lives. No thanks, don't want it. Sure, I buy a lot of shit. But if it wasn't there, would I? If I needed to be civilly disobedient and say, no, I'm not buying anything from this or that corporation, I could, and I would. And we need to do that together, right? I think these things that are survival based are the most important things to become independent on. But there's lots of things. I mean, there's things like clothes. There's things like the little niche-y items that we buy. Boycotts. Nobody does those anymore. Sometimes they do, but have you? And that's why people feel hopeless about voting, because they are so controlled. We are so controlled that we feel like voting should change the system and we should be represented if we vote for the right person. But the real systemic change is going to come through us practicing independence, taking it back. I mean, they sent a Declaration of Independence to England. Can we send a Declaration of Independence to our government and say, hey, we do not depend on you, so listen to us, or find out that we've created another system and we don't give a shit about you. You failed us. We've got something else going on. We're breaking up with you. And we've got this cool local way of doing things over here. And it's working great. Right? I mean, what's the federal government really good for? They're supposed to protect us from foreign invaders. They haven't done that very well, have they? There's so many illegal immigrants. They literally let invaders come into our country. Why do we think that they're going to help us out? I thought that they were gonna, but I'm not sure I'm seeing the amount of change that I needed. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry. I was supposed to make a 30-minute episode, and here I am at 37 minutes, but we'll keep going. I'll get better at this. So, our practical paths forward, right? There are solutions that can build community, resilience, and citizenship here at home, here in our local communities. And let's look at 5 different pathways that can lead us there. There's decentralized self-sufficiency, growing our own food, water storage and filtration, renewable energy at home, skills training. I've been teaching myself how to garden for 10 years. I got animals, about chickens, about 5 years ago. I tried rabbits. That wasn't for me. Now I do sheep. I love them. We want more property so that my eventual goal is that I can feed my entire family from my own property with my own hands. I want to do that for 1 year. That doesn't mean that I want to do it forever. I just want to prove to myself that I could do it, right? With community, it would make it a lot easier, but I'm still figuring that step out. Number 2, community networks, like I was saying. Skill shares, teaching people around you or trading skills, saying, hey, I know how to blacksmith and you know how to raise sheep, so how about I make you that thing you need and you give me meat? bartering, things like that. Home education groups. You can teach your kids together. It's even more fun. Neighborhood cooperatives, your neighbor's got a bunch of fruit trees and you've got a bunch of grapevines. That helps each other out because they're never going to eat all that fruit and you're never going to eat all those grapes. But together, you can split it. You can help out that other old lady neighbor who can watch your kids while you do some work on your property, and she can earn herself a meal. I mean, these are things that maybe are like end times things, but bringing those things back brings you closer to your community, and that's a really big thing. I know I always talk about here, but it's something I know is so important and something that I'm still working on. Politics can't really be fixed from a distance. I don't believe it can. I think we need to live it from the ground up locally. We need to support the local things. You need to start voting for your local elections. When I look around, I don't, only 35% of people voted for in our city elections. Lame. So lame. There's lawful civil disobedience. That's number 3. Look up local codes. Practice informed refusal of them. But stay peaceful, Don't do anything violent. That's not part of this story. There's things like ignoring absurd restrictions on having a home garden. Anybody should be able to have a home garden. I'm sorry. If your HOA says no, I think that's a middle finger right there. Or building personal energy systems. Can you back up your home when Excel decides to turn off your power? I sure hope so. And if not, you should start thinking about it because they're probably going to start doing it more. Or what about opting out of school, right? These are things that you're allowed to do, or at least should be. Number 4, local politics. Start interacting with and engaging with your local politics. I mean, that's from everything from school boards to zoning committee meetings to town councils to trying to get things passed that you and your community really want to see. If everybody wants to have chickens and roosters and the law says no, go get a group of people, go get all your neighbors and go to that town hall meeting and say, hey, we want this to happen. Change this. We don't like this rule. It's annoying. It takes forever. You're gonna spend a bunch of time on it. It feels pointless. If you want to make change, that's kind of what you're gonna have to do. I mean, that's why I tried to run for city council. Community is the most important point, though. It's not as easy to head up to Washington and hold up some signs that they're never going to listen to as it is to go to your local meetings and try to change things. Although I'll be honest, every local meeting that I've gone to that's been for a big issue has gone the opposite of the way of the people. So when that happens, it makes you just want to be civilly disobedient and say, you didn't listen to the people, you went with the money, and we aren't going to listen. That's what should happen. It's not what happens, but that's what we should be doing. And then there's number 5 is spiritual and cultural renewal, right? So, I mean, I'm reading Charlie Kirk's new book, and whether or not you believe he wrote it or if Turning Point wrote it or whatever, I ordered this a long time ago, I guess, and it showed up at my house. And I'm not very far into it. I'm still in chapter 1, but I'm really liking it so far because I know I'm not connected spiritually. I don't go to church regularly. I wish I did, but I just haven't refound a church that I love, a group that I feel connected with. And I'm trying. But, read the Bible. Find people who have shared morals and values as you. Teach your kids about virtue. Join prayer groups. I mean, these are things that are going to help you build soul, purpose, and meaning behind this movement that we should be forming, right? We can talk all we want about how the GOP is not doing what they need to do and all of these things, but how are we going to change it? We're not. We're not just sitting behind our screens talking on X about how disgruntled we are. We need to bring these things I'm talking about, these independence movement, we need to bring that back into our lives. It's okay to be angry. The system failure is real, or it sure feels like it from my end. But anger without action, with us just complaining, it's going to eat our souls. We're going to sit back and we're going to be sad, and they're going to slowly take over, and the libs are going to win in 2026, and they're going to win in 2028. And, they're worried about Trump sending them to concentration camps. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm more worried about them sending us to concentration camps. And if you ask them, I think that they actually would say, well, yeah, you need to go to these camps so that you can figure out what real empathy is. Yeah, they've never read the Bible. Let's remember this. Citizenship is not spectatorship. It's not us watching and complaining. It's us actually doing something. Patriots are not supposed to be passive people. We're supposed to do something. How? We don't need to drive up to Washington, D.C. and hold up signs. We don't need to, maybe we can write letters. I mean, that's action, but is it going to do anything? Voting, is it going to do anything? It doesn't seem like it has. So take action at home. That's always my vibe. You can change things about the world. If everybody did these kinds of things, we would have a different system. They wouldn't have control over us. Freedom isn't just turning in a ballot. It's a way of life. Live it, please. And let's remember that this needs to be purposeful. It needs to be community driven. You need to do this with friends and family. And it will breed resilience. It will. So here's my call to action, right? Grow something this coming season. Go buy your seeds right now. This is the time. Figure out how to grow. Raise some chickens if you want. You buy those in the spring. Some chicks. The kids love them. Build a skill that's going to take you out of dependency on something. If you don't know how to use a drill and repair a fence, start somewhere. That's a good place to start. But building a skill this next season, make that one of your goals. Make your goal for 2026 to make your family and yourself more independent from this system that has total control over most of us. That's what I'm asking for. Make 2026 the year you become independent from the system. You take that dependency on the corporations, on the government, on those people who want to control you away. That is a good goal for the new year. And I think that should be the goal for all patriots coming 2026. There's things like connecting with a neighbor who shares your values. Mine is building a community. I really want you, anybody watching, to be a part of my community. Give me more ideas of how we can fix this system without violence. Get out there and meet people around you. That's a huge goal of mine. And we're going to be moving soon to a more conservative area. So hopefully I can find people there, because our family's literally going to know 0 people when we move there. So it'll be a big deal for us. But hopefully you know people in your area already. I once did. They've all kind of drifted away into leftist land. Another idea, attend a local meeting and engage in it. Practice an act of resistance. These are goals for 2026. Try these. Because remember, politics alone is not going to save us. Prepared, independent systems, independent citizens in resilient communities is what's going to change America. It's going to bring us back. You know, my kids were watching a YouTube video about the founding times, and my daughter comes up to me afterwards and she says, "So everybody worked for themselves?" Because my husband and I work for ourselves, and we're always telling them, you know, we want you to start your own business. We want you to do your own thing. We don't want you to have somebody else as your boss other than us. That is a big deal. That just about everybody back in the founding times didn't have a boss unless you were part of the trades and you were being taught under a master. There were farmers, there were tradespeople, and then there were the professionals, which were the doctors, the lawyers, and the merchants who owned stores. And those were the jobs back then. Can we bring that back? That would make us far more independent. Not having to go to wake up at your alarm clock, go to work all day to work for somebody else, get that paycheck, come home, eat your dinner. Imagine a different life. Imagine where you rule your own life. That's how it used to be. Can our system not handle us bringing that back to a lot of people? I don't know. Maybe I'm idealistic. I am a little bit. But through time and experience, realism's really set in for me. And I think the realism that voting doesn't matter, isn't working, is deep in my heart, and it's probably deep in yours too. So let's close it out with remembrance of keeping our homes bright and our hearts courageous, because those are the things we need to move forward. Come up with those ideas for 2026. I think independence should be our goal. I like that. Peace out.